Join us for 3 days in Orlando, Florida in March 2026 for an event designed to equip IT professionals like you with the tools, knowledge, and strategies to navigate the ever-changing cybersecurity landscape. Secure your spot and register to join us for 3 days of immersive learning, collaboration, and skill building with hands-on hacking labs and much more. Network with peers from around the globe. Share experiences and learn from real-world case studies, all aimed at enhancing your capabilities as an IT professional. Elevate your experience at the after party. Registration is now open. Register now for Zero Trust World 2026 and take the first step towards a more secure tomorrow.
Good morning and welcome to week 11.
Week 11, Danny.
Of how to secure your environment.
Week 11 of 13, I believe.
13? I thought it was
15.
Is it
13?
Yeah.
15? Okay.
We got 4 more.
I thought we were closer to at the end than...
We're getting closer. So obviously done a lot so far. Mostly been focused on how do we harden our environment, how do we secure our environment.
Last week was fun. AD.
Oh. Sarcasm.
Yes.
So important, but
Yes.
fun. Now, today we're going to talk about responding to attacks when they're in the process and how you can slow down the attackers. Now, look, the best way to slow down the attacker is to stop them from getting onto your system in the first place. And hard reality, someone's getting onto your system to deploy ransomware. It's probably from, well, it's almost certainly from an open port, be it RDP or a vulnerability in your Exchange server or an open web server or a piece of software.
Something that ran that shouldn't have.
Yes, so they are the most important things you should be focusing on. How do I block things by default? How do I ring fence what's allowed so it can't be used against me? But also, how do I make sure ports are closed, VPN ports are closed, and everything else? So we've talked a lot about that. But the reality is, we've got coming up on 4 million endpoints. We've got an MDR team servicing over close to 1 million, I'd say. And we get alerts every day that are legitimate attacks on people's system. Now, it's normally because they didn't follow step 1, 2.
Would you agree that it's more often attacks being attempted than attacks actually?
Oh, no, 99% of the alerts attacks being attempted, but realistically, we still get 2 to 3 cases in a week where someone didn't have whitelisting enabled and someone in TeamViewer
learning mode
or they're in learning mode, or someone decided, despite the fact they have network control, to open RDP on the internet or have a vulnerable VPN.
Yes.
So it happens.
But we could all coalesce and agree that it's better to be alerted about things that are trying to happen and not being able to happen than things that are actively happening.
Yeah. So today I want to talk about detect, EDR, why it is important, and the MDR team we often internally call the configuration police because they're calling customers up saying you've done something wrong.
You made this mistake. This thing is set incorrectly.
But we also want to show you a cool feature that you may not be aware of, which I call kneecapping.
I see.
So we're going to show you how you can actually kneecap attackers who are in an attack, giving your MDR, your SOC, your response team.
Have we trademarked kneecapping?
I'm sure that's only in Ireland, Rob.
Yeah.
So we're going to show you some of that stuff as well. So
Benedict has just said, careful, the BBC might censor us.
Yes. Welcome to Florida, man. So what we're going to do essentially is talk a little bit about detect, talk about EDR and why it's important, and show you some extra things you can do. Because most of the time you buy an EDR, most people have an EDR at this point. They turn it on and it sends alerts. And if you're doing it right, it's sending alerts to someone who's watching the alerts.
24/7, 365.
Yes, or 366 on a leap year.
Well, yes.
So you need somebody to watch the alerts, but also you need to make sure we can do more and automatically respond.
Watch and filter through the inevitable garbage
And
that many of the alerts are going to be.
And that's the reality of it. Most of them are garbage, but I would say I'd rather the MDR team get a few more alerts
than not see something that's important.
Yes.
I think we can agree on that.
Okay, so first of all, this is pretty simple. If you have an EDR, make sure the alerts are going to someone and they're actually responding to those. If you're using ThreatLocker and you've got Detect, you've got Unified, that is a full EDR. We're following the MITRE ATT&CK framework standards. We're making sure we get alerted on all suspicious behaviors. And unlike most EDRs, our alerts are processed on the agent, which means they happen almost instantly. So you're not worrying about.
As did the responses in a lot of cases,
as do the responses, which you're going to demonstrate today,
yes.
And that's really important. But also, you can build your own alerts and detections that are above just the MITRE ATT&CK framework. So we showed you some of those a few weeks ago with the storage policy. So I'm going to show you a couple of things now if you're using ThreatLocker to make sure you've got configured. So I'll switch to my screen here. And the first thing is, if you're using ThreatLocker MDR, EDR, make sure you have your run book configured. And I'm just completely blank where it's moved to now because I keep moving it around. But if we go into ThreatLocker Detect and we look at our policies. Oh, it's in the hamburger here. Okay, so well hidden away. Okay, worth noting, there is a red bar at the top if it's not configured that tells you it's not configured. But if you're using ThreatLocker, make sure you go in and configure this and configure your endpoint detection and response settings. So first thing you should do is go into Detect, click on the hamburger. You'll get a red bar if it's not there, which is why I've apparently never clicked on it here. And this is really strict. In my environment, very simple, but essentially what you need to do here is say, here's a list of contacts if something happens. And they're going to call or email depending on the severity. So if someone's on your server at 2 a.m. in the morning, they're probably going to call. And then you put instructions in here. If you don't put in instructions, we're going to do what we think is best, which means if we genuinely think you're in trouble and your server is compromised, we may lock down that server so it stops functioning. But if we think, okay, we need to block RDP, we'll block RDP. If we think we just need to send you an email because we can just block TeamViewer, we kicked them off, we'll do that. We're going to do the least amount of damage we can. If you do put instructions in here, our team will follow these instructions. So in my case, I've just said, hey, authenticate me, because that means make sure I'm not forgetting to turn off detect.
I'm going to mention something that is an oft-made mistake here, which is you have one contact there and you have call 2 minutes later. What happens if they can't get you?
Well, it's my demo environment, so
well,
they're going to isolate if they feel like they need to isolate.
But it is important that if you should put time and effort and thought into actually setting these up. So if it's ring Danny, then ring Rob. Make sure you've got contact details for both Danny and Rob. What happens if neither are available? Put some time and effort and thought into this rather than just ring me if stuff is happening.
And your solution engineer will actually help you with that as well. Now, here's a couple of examples. So that you could put in here. For example, you could say, if in doubt, always lock down my server during 8 p.m. to 8 a.m., for example. So this is basically saying...
What time zone?
Always important as well.
Yes.
EST. So this means they'll go, okay, if it's a nighttime alert, and they'll check your time zone if you don't put it, but it's handy that they get it quicker, less mistakes.
Do you want to explain what lockdown is?
I will do, yes.
Okay, that's fine.
But I've seen people put in here, always lock down the server if you can't get us, if there's any alert. Most people are saying use your discretion, call us, email us, and do what you can. But have a good escalation. If this is a mission critical system that you never want to have locked down, saying never lock down our system in response to an attack. Always call, and that's all you're to do is essentially respond by calling and telling us there's something suspicious, and we'll action the alert. So go in here, make sure this is set up. You can set up different alerts for different groups.
I was going to mention that. So the ones that you're setting there for the entire organization, you could have different instructions for servers. You could have different instructions for specific machines.
And I noticed they've added global in here too. That works, I'm assuming. This is where you have multiple sub-organizations, so you don't have to go and set them at each organization level. So you can go and apply your runbook settings to whichever group or user you want. But make sure you do have this set up. Make sure you have good escalation. And change it, by the way. If you find someone called you because somebody ran IP scanner and you always run IP scanner, they'll add exclusions next time, but you can put that in the notes. Okay, don't call if there's an IP scan. Do call if it's this. So,
but I would say try and be as specific as possible. So saying, lock down my server if something's going on means they have to go and figure out what your server is or what you're talking about. Whereas if you actually created for your server, they know before they even go into it what machine it is and what the instructions for that machine are.
And during the first few weeks, I would always be a little bit more leaning on just call if unless it's really, really obvious.
Yes.
Because that's better that they call you, you get it right, you figure out what's new. And these guys will learn what your environment looks like. They've got notebooks. They know this is normal. This is normal behavior. They'll add exclusions for you so they don't get those alerts again. If you have an RMM that runs a PowerShell in unrestricted mode every Tuesday at 3 a.m., they'll say, okay, this is an exclusion I'm going to add so we know this is normal behavior in this environment. But go in here, configure your runbook. Now, all of the policies are there by default for detection on the MITRE ATT framework. We went through previously detection policies on high volumes of data exfiltration, so we did that a few weeks ago. But I want to talk about slowing these guys down, otherwise kneecapping them. So if someone gets on your server, we are now in a race. Our MDR, your SOC, good guys versus bad guys are racing. And you want to make sure you've got as much time as possible to win that race. Now, you don't want to automatically respond and lock down a server. So one of the things you could do is say, if someone gets on and they trigger a high threat score, then I'm going to isolate their machine and take it off the network. The problem with that approach is essentially they could DDoS you, which is not good. But we do want to figure out ways to slow them down. So one of the things that we recommend you do is basically blocking admin tools in response to a certain threat score being reached. So if we believe it's too aggressive, blocking the admin tools might be a pain in the backside.
Less of a pain in the backside than locking down the machine completely.
But if it's still better than not, slowing them down.
It's a reasonable response if you think something is going on.
Okay, so here's I'm going to show my screen again, and I'm going to show you very quickly some recommendations. And I want you to think about what software you've got in your environment and what you want to block. And these are in community, some of these policies, but I've created a policy here, and I'll show you how to create one from scratch called block admin tools v2. And I'm going to do this right from the beginning so you understand what I'm going to do. I'm going to say block. Right. Block. If I could type. Can't see my keyboard.
I like that you typed blork.
Admin tools. I'm going to call it v3. I want you to understand. So this is an application control policy. And basically what this policy is going to do, it's not going to be enabled. It's going to apply to all users and groups and my entire organization. And I'm going to add some applications that I consider dangerous. So what am I willing to lose in the event of a suspicious behavior? So I'm going to say PowerShell. Of course, there's 100 PowerShells. So I'm going to say PowerShell. Too many PowerShells module. PowerShell full language. Oh, ISE. I'm going to put that one in there. I forgot about that one. PowerShell full language mode.
Mm-hmm.
Just type full language mode. Okay, so PowerShell full language mode.
One below.
Window. What's the difference? PowerShell full language mode. Oh, file.
Yeah,
that includes the whole file. And we're also going to add psexec. You shouldn't have a policy for psexec anyway, but I'm going to put it in there as a blocked policy. I'm going to put in...
put in run DLL.
Windows Terminal.
Terminal, good one.
Because Windows is in there. I don't know about run DLL because you can't run it unless you're running from command prompt anyway, and that's quite popularly used.
Okay, fair.
But it depends. You can look at your environment and see if these programs are running very often. I don't want to break an existing application. So if I say command prompt, PowerShell, I know there's more.
You don't have command prompt yet?
Oh, command prompt. That will do it. Because now you can't really.
What about things like curl?
Curl, another good one.
I mean, technically it's ring-fenced out of the box, but still no harm in blocking it.
And I'm going to put 7-zip in here because it's in my other example. And the reason being is this is used very heavily in encryption. Although taking command line... If I could...
7-.
Okay, so I'm going to add 7-zip, all versions of 7-zip. So basically I've created a policy here that's going to deny all of these programs from running. I'm going to set it into secured mode. So even if the machine's in monitor-only mode, if this policy is enabled, nothing here can run. And I'm going to actually check this box here, kill running processes. Today we released 10.3.3, which includes some updates to retrying on alerts, a bug fix really if there was a network problem. But also the most important thing is the ability to use the threat score, the ThreatLocker internal threat score when evaluating policies. So in order to do this, you need to be on 10.3.3. 10.3.4, which is going to be out this week as well, is going to have a really, hopefully, or maybe next week, it's going to have a really cool feature in that it's going to allow you to immediately kill running processes rather than waiting for the 2-minute cycle or whatever it may be. So important. So what I've done here is I've saved this policy.
By the way, Richard has just mentioned, love it. On this webinar, received a notification from the MDR team, TL.CD-046, login attempt to a disabled account. Great work.
Okay. Hopefully it was an attempt, not a success. Okay, so if we now go into detect here, so I've got an application policy. I'm going to set a policy that automatically, I'm going to do a new policy. I've already got one here, but I'm going to basically say if the threat score is reached, automatically trigger this alert. So I'm going to create a new policy. If warning threat score block admin tools. So basically what I'm going to do is say, I know the MDR is going to respond to that warning, and they're pretty damn fast. But in the meantime, let's do some kneecapping. So what we're going to say is I'm going to create a policy here that says if the threat, built-in threat level, this is the ThreatLocker score. You can use your own, you can create your own policies in your own edition, but this is the one we use from our MicroThreat framework, is greater than, or I'm going to say greater than or equal to 250. A couple of notes. We trigger this as a warning. And we trigger 500 as a critical alert. So if you have one, you can be lower, you can be higher. I could say 200, for example, if I wanted to be less aggressive. I'm going
Back in the early days of Detect, I managed to get my threat score up to 14,500.
14,500.
Yes, brute forcing myself.
Oh yes, so you can't do that anymore. So it's smart enough to know.
As I said, back in the early days.
It's smart enough to know that, hey, there's like a policy for high number of invalid logins and low number of invalid logins, but you can't say, well, I did invalid logins 14,000 times, therefore my threat score keeps increasing. So we're going to enable this application policy, and we're basically going to say block admin tools v2. So what this does is it says if the threat score goes above 200, the server is going to continue to serve, UNC shares are still going to be open, everything's going to continue to work as normal, but I'm going to block all these admin tools, which is really going to slow them down. I'm going to show you how this works as well.
Now, without stating the blindingly obvious, you're applying an application control policy in response to an event. You could also apply network control policies, storage control policies, pretty much anything else within ThreatLocker can be applied as a response to an event.
Correct. And I'm going to put something in here. Actually, I'm going to add an alert. Oh, this is the one I created. I've done too many of these during my test here, so this is not the one I just created actually, but here's an example. I actually created an alert. Don't be bad. We've blocked admin tools, and I'm enabling V2. I'm going to switch this to V3. So I've got a few things going on here. I've actually got 3 of these now because I've been creating too many policies. So what's going to happen now is I'm going to show you a couple of things. I'm going to open PowerShell.
Christopher Morse has asked, am I the only one trying to click the deploy policies button on Danny's screen?
I'm going to do the same. Okay, I'm going to clear this alert because this feature is really annoying but also really cool. You can put messages against machines, so you have to acknowledge them before you clear. So I'm going to clear this alert because I'm actually already in lockdown mode.
I think the message I put on my demo environment is Rob is extremely knowledgeable and handsome. Let him do whatever he wants.
Oh, still wait a second. I'm just going to wait for PowerShell to all my alerts to be cleared. And let me just check I haven't done something crazy like enable the policy by mistake, which I've done sometimes.
Probably done something crazy like enabling the policy by mistake.
I haven't. So thing to note here, when this policy gets enabled, it's enabled on the device that triggers the score. So you create these policies typically at a server level, a group level, and you'd have different policies for servers and workstations. So you might say, on my workstations, I'm going to create a policy to block admin tools, whereas my servers, I'm going to create a policy to block admin tools and web browsers because no one should be browsing the web on the server. So I'm going to really cripple the endpoint as well. So let me try and open PowerShell again. So I now have PowerShell open. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something bad that's going to trigger an MDR or an EDR alert. So if I go into my downloads, I'm going to run Advanced IP Scanner. Now, Advanced IP Scanner, blocked in our environment. So talking about kneecapping, we've already kneecapped them with application control because they're not allowed to use Advanced IP Scanner. Now, if we were really doing admin tasks on the server, we could have started a
Maintenance mode.
Maintenance mode. So we could have gone into here, said, I'm going to do maintenance on the server or on this device. I'm going to say disable detect. I'm going to do it for 1 hour. It means don't create any alerts, don't do anything, which is what we should be doing when we're doing suspicious IT tasks. Now, because I ran that, what happened was I got a response, an alert in my threat center. So this would have gone to ThreatLocker MDR as well if we have MDR set up. And hopefully I didn't change it to lock down my machine instantly. I was messing around with my runbook. And it tells me that advanced IP scanner and the warning threat level was reached. So I can see these alerts have come through.
I think it said to pop a QR code and ring you 2 minutes later.
Yeah, I don't know what I saved over the top because I was messing it.
Ooh.
Yeah. So now if I try and run PowerShell again, it's now blocked. In addition to that, you'll notice I put a policy in here when I actually created that application control policy. I told it to kill running processes. So this is an inactive policy. I told it to kill running processes, which means not only will it stop me running PowerShell, but also kill PowerShell that's open. So my version of PowerShell is now gone from my screen that's closed. Note in 10.3.4, this can take up to 2 minutes in 10.3.3. In 10.3.4, this will almost happen instantaneously. So the moment they try and run that IP scanner, PowerShell windows are going to close, and they're not going to be able to do anything. You can say they can get a notification, or you can just say block it completely. We can also apply storage policies to this. So if I go into storage control...
Just on that policy, Ed has asked a question, which is there a way to automatically disable the policy again when the detect alert is cleared?
Yeah, this is what happens. I can literally just go into here, clear the alert, and test. Immediately, once that alert is cleared, the system returns to its ordinary state.
So you would now have PowerShell again?
Yes. So a couple of things to know. You can also put other remote access tools in here. So maybe you allow TeamViewer on your machine. If you said, I'm going to put TeamViewer to stop TeamViewer from running because I want to kill the TeamViewer session if this happens. Bear in mind, when we say kill running processes, the process won't start itself afterwards. It will allow you to run it, but if you've got TeamViewer running as a service and it's crashed and it's stopped, it's now stopped. So you won't be able to get back on until you go and start the service manually from the machine. If you've got ThreatLocker Remediator, you can do it from there. But when you're thinking about what I'm killing, something like killing PowerShell, killing command prompt isn't a big deal. Killing a service that you need to connect to the machine later on.
Not a great idea.
Not a great idea. However, there are some exceptions to that. Another example I'm going to put here is I'm going to say block. And of course, we probably shouldn't allow RDP, but maybe we've got some isolated exceptions for RDP. So I'm going to say block RDP. I'm going to say inbound. Source ports, all direction inbound, destination, and selected ports. So I'll say remote desktop, RDP. Basically, just added that into there, deny. So I've set a deny all RDP traffic on the portal here. I can now go into detect and I can expand that policy to say I'm going to block RDP connections. Now, the nice thing about this one is once you release it, you can now reconnect from RDP because we're not killing a process. We're just essentially blocking a port from running. So it's not the end of the world. So if you're thinking about how to do this, anything in ThreatLocker pretty much gets cleared the moment you clear alerts. And I could go into that detect policy, and I've got so many of them I've created here. But I could literally just add another what does I call this? RDP. Or enable enable network policy. And the policy is RDP. I've got quite a few of these going on here. I thought I called it block. You know what I did? The reason if it's not showing up, here's a little thing you probably did wrong, which is what I did, which is enable a policy. Because it will only let you enable a policy
if it's disabled.
Equally, you can use a detect policy to disable things. So you could have an allow policy for RDP, and you could turn that policy off when the detect policy applies. So that's really, really important here. And if you don't have it off, so when I say block admin tools here, I'm going to add to say enable network policy. Now, the reason I like to enable a block of RDP as opposed to disabling the only one, which would be better in a lot of circumstances, is if you had created another one that you didn't know about. So someone creates a detect policy to say, I'm going to disable my RDP policy.
This will take...
Then someone else creates another one saying, I allow RDP in these circumstances, and you don't know about it. creating a block one at the top of the list ensures that it's going to be blocked. So now I can see my block RDP. So now it will do both those things. We can also I'll do one more example. I'm going to add a storage control policy here. Enable storage control policy. And I think block sensitive folders. So now I've got, if the threat score goes above 200, I believe, or 250, block admin tools, block RDP, and block access to sensitive folders. So what I've done in that case is said, again, I show my inactive and disable policies. I've created a storage policy here that says deny read and write access to this folder. But you can pretty much put any folder you want in there. And when that's enabled, it's going to essentially stop someone writing that. So this is really useful if you're in the middle of a ransomware attack and you want to stop writes happening pretty much immediately.
And obviously you can also block reads as well as writes. So reads would be useful in stopping data exfiltration.
So I think the homework from this one is to go off and to create a detect policy. Make sure you're on 10.3.3. It will be, if it's not live by the end of this webinar, it'll be live by the end of the day, assuming QA don't beat me around the head with it, which sometimes they do. So install 10.3.3. Create a policy to, if the threat score is greater than or equal to 250, to automatically create an alert. Now, we're sending an alert technically if that happens anyway, because you're going to see that. But what I want to do is make sure that you know that the conditions of this policy aren't going to cause any false positives. And then in a few days' time, go and add these application policies. We do have some of them pre-canned in community, so I'll have a look at them. They were created just before this webinar. If I say, let me search for admin tools. We got an example admin tools application control policy here. And that shows you some of the examples in here. You can also add your own. Oh, regedit, there's another good one that I forgot to put in there. Definitely don't want registry editing tools.
Task scheduler.
This one should have PowerShell constraint mode in it. Anything you want to add, you can just take this and you can add things in there. Task scheduler might be another one. So go through, figure out what you want to remove, what you want to allow, and really just test it.
But you can just add that community policy and then add to it.
Yeah, so what this community policy does is it essentially make sure you turn it to inactive when you do this. Make sure if you want to do kill running processes, you can. And you can just add to what you want. Again, most things are pretty safe to add from an admin tool perspective. The ones I'd be conscious of if you're using something like TeamViewer and you kill the process, it's not going to run again.
Couple of quick questions. Dave Barnes has asked, is there a way to pin block policies at the top of the policy list?
Well, there's not a way to pin them as such, but you can put them in any order. Well, I'll tell you one thing I don't like, which I suppose I technically control how this gets fixed, is this, by default, we have inactive disabled, which drives me insane because I'm always like, where's my policy gone that I just created? I think this should show the expired policy and just make it very clear this is expired or not enabled. That's just something that I'm going to bring up with the dev team because it's been driving me insane. But also, there's a new policy reorder function coming out, very heavily requested, where you can actually reorder all your policies, and they're not, because at the moment policies apply to global workstation, second or global something, global organization, group, computers, and then groups. Going forward, within a few weeks, if not sooner, you'll be able to actually say apply policies flat on order, and you'll be able to say built-ins go behind non-built-ins and anything you want. When we do that, we actually have some hard numbers where we'll never automatically create a policy lower. So if you wanted to create a hard-coded block policy, if you put it as a negative number, it's always going to be above everything that's permitted, because the new policy is always going to start at 1 and will always just go to the lowest number. So if you want to make sure things don't get overridden, just put it as a negative and it won't be able to override.
Anonymous attendee, not sure if this is the nice anonymous attendee or the one that doesn't like Macs, but we'll run with it. With multiple people creating policies, can we search to identify policies that may impact specified apps, services, etc.? What is the most reliable way to prevent multiple policies from addressing related issues in multiple ways?
So,
I mean, realistically, top down.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things you probably do is unused policies should be deleted. No, we don't delete delete, so that's really on the permit. So we have a function here, and you can essentially say, where is it? Update last match, or you got to go to Remove unused. It's red right in front of me. And this will actually show you any policies that aren't being used. So if you've got a PowerShell, 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 it will go and remove the 3 PowerShells below that because they're not being used in a period. You can click this. And we're going to go through this as part of the cleanup later on. So you can remove unused policies. This will prevent some duplicates as well. The other thing is you can test what policy is going to hit. Run the program is the easiest way to test what it's going to hit.
See what it matches.
See what it matches, and it will show you in the unified audit what it's going to hit. Okay, so other thing we want to talk about quickly is Microsoft 365. We obviously also have Detect on Microsoft 365. Again, it's the same runbook, I believe. Or let me just double check, maybe not. Cloud response settings, so incorrect. It's a different runbook, so you can go into here and put cloud response settings. This is going to essentially tell ThreatLocker what to do if we get an alert that we think is suspicious behavior. Again, there's hundreds of policies already configured to look for anomalies in Office 365. You can also go off and create your own policies.
Just a quick one. Glenn Baker's made a really good suggestion, which is it would be very good to know who last edited a policy without having to go through the logs.
So I believe this is coming if it's not here, because it did come up in Town Hall. We're putting this on everything. So every policy has an object ID, and there's a tab going to be appearing or a link to the audit to see. But technically, right now, I know it's a pain, but you can copy the GUID.
That's what he's trying to avoid.
Yeah, but we're going to have basically a link, so it's going to be on the object, so you can see the change history on the object. It's not going to be every object at once, but I can essentially go back in all history. I think, is this the entity ID or is that the... Yeah, so this will tell me what happened with that policy.
It will be much nicer to have that on the policy itself.
Yes, it's going to be on every page. It's just a lot of work because it's not one. So essentially an object history, so you can go back and see everything that's happening and who changed it, who read it, who did whatever else with it.
Now, this may be a useful segue. William Hand has asked, how do you reset a device's ThreatLocker detect level?
So how do you reset it?
How do you reset a device's ThreatLocker detect level? It's presumably the threat score.
Oh, it's so clear the alerts. So technically, if once an alert trips a threshold, it's going to go into the response. It's really, really worth noting. They also clear. So if someone does something bad on the newer builds, so make sure you're using the newer build. It only keeps, so if you have an invalid login today, and then you have, I opened PowerShell in 3 days' time as an admin, all of these contribute to your threat score. They're not going to take the invalid login from 3 days ago and contribute. So they're constantly clearing themselves as they become irrelevant facts. And this is new in 10.3.3 or 10.3.2 or something, so make sure you're on 10.3.3 or 10.3.2. But when you click clear, and again, I can do it from the devices page. If I don't actually have an alert, I can click on any device, and I can click on ThreatLocker Detect, and I can just clear any alerts here, and this will actually tell the device, forget everything you know about ThreatLocker. If there is a policy that's triggered, it's going to be on the alerts center, but if it hasn't triggered, you can just say, forget everything about ThreatLocker here, and it will clear the alert.
And you should really only do that when you're absolutely sure that there's nothing going on.
There's no reason to do it unless there's an alert on the response center, to be honest. Because if you, let's just say you did something, because elevating PowerShell by itself isn't going to trigger the MDR breathing down your back, but it's going to contribute towards that. If you let the machine behave for a period of time, it's going to lower its own threat status. If you want to clear it before it actually triggers an alert, so you can go into the portal and clear that alert. Again, reminder, I'm pretty sure this does this as soon as you do it. If you put the machine into maintenance mode for detect, it's going to clear any alerts as well.
Useful. Jamie, can you configure detect to send an email if an alert above a certain threat level is generated?
You can pretty much configure detect to do anything you want.
Yep.
I don't necessarily agree that an email is the best communication strategy. Maybe it's because my email gets...
You're really down on email, Danny. Not everybody gets 10 million emails a day like you do.
So, but here you can add an action, and you could send a webhook. You could call a REST API. So if you want to put a ticket in a SIM or a ticketing system, you can lock down the machine automatically. Be really, really careful when you set these lockdown policies automatically. And you can send an email, send push notification. So there's a lot of different options there.
Just back a little bit, Benedict has asked, probably a silly question, but can't recall if you explained, but those application policies you've created in deny, which will be enabled based on detect policies, you put them at the top of the order. Should they not go at the end of the order as an implicit deny?
No, because if you have an allow policy at the end, it doesn't matter. It's going to be overwritten by the permit above it. These policies run in order, top to bottom.
The higher they are, the better.
In detect, the order doesn't matter because these are essentially they process all detect policies on every item. But on something that's blocking, the first policy that matches, I know there's some built-in considerations where we prioritize built-in apps, and that's more about not necessarily the policy matching, but when we match two apps, we try and determine which is the best app, and that's going to be changeable in, I think, one of the very near future builds.
Craig has asked, can you send a text message?
I don't think you can, actually. You can send a push notification.
You can send a push notification.
Although I haven't tested that, so I just saw it in there this second. So you can install the ThreatLocker admin app and send a push notification on your phone. That's what it says, so be interested to test that.
It guaranteed to work. Anonymous Tandy, two big frustrations with Detect. We have the inability to clear a singular alert on many machines. Probably a valid point.
No, you can. That was resolved.
The same alert or clear the same alert on many machines.
So technically, you can't. I wish I had multiple machines with the same alert now. But if you have a machine and it has 200 alerts on it, so you've got you go off and you create
more that alert on 200 machines.
Yeah, if you create a policy that says alert on every execute, for example, which is going to cause every machine to go into an alert state immediately. If you go to the first machine with just that policy, just that alert, and clear it, it will say there are 200 machines. And this is on, I don't know what build you have to be on for this. It's one of the newer builds. I know that. And someone's going to tell me if I'm wrong on this, because I know our MDR do it all the time. Do you want to clear all of the machines that have the exact same alert pattern? So that will remove the 199 machines, and then the one machine with 10 alerts on it is going to stay in the list.
Okay. So George has replied to Craig, can you send text messages? He said texts are possible. The other part
Someone said texts are possible. I didn't see text. Let me just double check that.
The other part of Anonymous Attendee's question was creating exclusions using wildcards, such as event log message contains a string. I also think that's possible now.
Let me do this. I will go and trigger an alert. So let me run an IP scanner again. Now, it may not be possible on every field, and if you need it to be possible on a field, just request it. Let me see if I can...
Peter has also mentioned, pretty sure you can find a way to trigger a text with a webhook through a variety of third-party options.
Yeah, I don't think there's a text, but you could do webhook through Verizon. I'm just going to download a virus to trigger Windows Defender event log alert. So if I go into here... You know how hard it is to download malware nowadays?
It's not easy. Ahmad has asked, can I integrate ThreatLocker with, I thought it said interrogate. It says integrate ThreatLocker with Splunk.
Yes.
Yes. I think if you go to threatlocker.kb.help, we actually have an article specifically on that subject.
And there's various things. You can create a data type in Splunk in ThreatLocker, or you can just send the JSON. Generally, we recommend... So let me save this and trigger an alert in Defender. So if I say...
I remember the days when you used to have folders full of viruses.
This is not my computer.
Oh, so you still have folders full of viruses?
Maybe some, but not too many. I'm just going to say get admins. So that basically triggered Windows Defender. So if I'm right in thinking, this will probably go off and create an alert into my response center. I got a new alert. Windows Defender detected malware. I'm going to see if this is possible now. So I'm going to add an exclusion to say, oh, the exclusion is message, event log message. Yes, so you can use wildcards in here. So you could go in here and say, I'm going to basically, it's a very, very long message, so I can basically say if it contains the EI car, Just put a wildcard there. Wildcard there. Then add exclusion. Now, if there is a condition missing, so if there's something else that doesn't let you put wildcards in and doesn't let you free type, just report it and we'll get it. Like, we try to add wildcards to everything that's viable. Technically, the agent supports wildcards on everything. It's more of a portal issue.
So hopefully that has answered anonymous attendees' two big frustrations. Benedict says, Danny has the Flipper 0, I see. I don't know. Was that something in your downloads folder, maybe?
Maybe.
I'm guessing it was, but yeah, that's also not Danny's laptop, so what is in the downloads folder in that laptop may not be indicative of pieces of technology that he has, but I'm
sure I do have
I'm pretty sure you do have a
Not from going to Canada, I don't.
What?
Well, they're illegal in Canada.
Oh, I see, yeah.
Apparently, I was in
Robbing cars
the
or
Middle
something.
East a few weeks ago as well. I was in Qatar, and the guy very kindly pointed out that it was criminal to have rubber duckies in Qatar as well.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
So, well, as I had I promptly handed them to our salesperson and said, "Hey, he's on a plane with you."
So what you're saying is Alessandro is technically a criminal in Qatar.
Yes.
Andrew, how do you handle push notifications on to rotating on-call technicians? Rotate them on one phone would probably be a simple solution to that.
Yes, we don't. I don't think there's a way of doing like PagerDuty stuff where we're choosing who's on call for that.
Simon, I'm sure this is a sarcastic question. What is a rubber ducky?
Okay. Maybe it's a new webinar, rubber ducky hacking device, plug it into a keyboard and it sends keystrokes. We have a whole webinar series on it.
Yes, a number of them. Douglas, is there any way to tell what policies are enabled per device? So, for example, choose a device and see what policies are enabled on that device.
So if you go into here and you pick, I'll just
Danny's
pick my
laptop.
100 days server, and then I say show all policies. This will show me everything that applies to that device.
So, global, entire organization, global groups, device policies.
Yes.
God. George, if you go to users, then click on your user, then go to notify on request, but I guess we're looking for the text. Maybe I'm wrong. Lol, send an email, push notifications are the only ones available to detect, so you can't, in fact, send an SMS.
Yes, I think if you wanted to send an SMS alert, you'd have to send it through a webhook or Verizon or something. Okay, I'm trying to think, do we have... I'm getting a message at 10.3.3 will probably be resolved by the end of the day. I think it's probably because we haven't fully deployed all the servers yet, so it's not quite live. But if you check it at the end of the day, it should be live. So, okay, so let's just focus on what we're going to get done in the next week. Obviously, we should also be focusing still continuously on doing audits on our allow listing, making sure we're not hitting any green denies, locking down more machines. Would expect that to be happening every day. Make sure that you have your MDR runbook set up. If you're not using ThreatLocker, it's the same principle with someone else. MDRs, they need to know how to respond. If you've got an internal SOC, that's great. That means they probably know how to respond. But make sure you've got your cloud runbook and your MDR runbook set up. The other thing is make sure you do set a policy to at least alert if the threat score, and then test that, and then let's put the actual threats locking down admin tools in the event. That will really, really help your SOC, our MDR, or anyone who has to respond to a real threat in a real environment. George, been with ThreatLocker Unified for 8 months now, and they allow me to sleep. That is probably the best feedback that I get from anyone, is you help me sleep at night. Not me personally, but ThreatLocker helps me sleep at night. But anyway, the only things I've woken up with were 2 a.m. call for an actual issue. The service is great and worth the money. Implementation is a breeze. Okay.
Thank you.
It is a breeze, but it has to be done properly. So that's why I reiterate, make sure you've got these runbooks updated. If you don't have an automated response policy, put it in place. Make sure you're on the latest agent. So I'll pause that until the end of the day, because there are some threat score things that have been improved to stop the score continuously counting forever. And just if you haven't done a demo of ThreatLocker and you want to check out some of our stuff, you can also, there should be a demo link there, but you can also go to threatlocker.com, schedule a demo. We can actually do a free audit, show you what apps you have, show you what software you're running, show you the risks in your environment. It doesn't cost anything. There's no obligation.
Glenn, interesting one. Would love to ring fence service host.
You can ring fence service hosts.
I think we've tried it. I think it's noisy.
It is very, very noisy because you get a lot of internet traffic going out. So
Maybe Insights might help with your ring fencing of service hosts.
it does, but the problem is it depends on what applications you use. It may have different domains.
Yeah.
So if you're going to do it, there's a cool new feature we're going to show you in ring fencing next week as well. Hopefully.
Hopefully.
So if we can, if you're going to do that, let's just make sure you put it in monitor only, and we can check it out a week later.
That's actually a good point. Do ring fence it, but put it in monitor only.
The policy
Cool.
is that, not the computer.
The policy is
Yes. Okay.
correct.
Well, guys, I think we're finishing 9 minutes early today, which is great news.
Amazing.
Got lots of homework though. Make sure you put those detect policies in place. Make sure you do upgrade to the latest agent when it's out at the end of today. Thank you very much, Rob. Thank you everyone for your time.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you, everyone.